My wife Willow lost both her mother and her lover on the same day. All because her mother and her personal trainer were caught fooling around in a car and burned to death in a fire. She sobbed until she could hardly breathe, saying I was the only family she had left. Yet I had long known that the so-called accidental blaze had originally been a surprise my wife prepared for me. Chapter 1: Terror in a Torrential Rain Night. As I crushed my 13th beer can, the red dot on the in-car GPS began blinking over the Golden Dragon Hotel in the New District. Willow's Chanel chain bag lay on the passenger seat. From its inner pocket poked a gilt-edged keycard, room 328, with the logo of Makoto Personal Training Studio beneath the number. Its edge still dusted with whey protein grains from his bulk-up powder. I'm taking Sophia to the IMAX showing of Oppenheimer tonight, don't wait up. 3 hours earlier, Willow had said that while painting on the Tiffany black tube lipstick I'd given her, the cherry scent mixed with the sandalwood at the tips of her hair, now that fragrance makes me want to gag. Even on the highest setting the wipers couldn't sweep away the downpour. Across and one floor up, the floor-to-ceiling window of room 328 glowed under a soft yellow wall lamp, its sheer curtain lifted about 30 degrees by the wind. Makoto, the curtain isn't drawn. Willow's voice drifted to my ears, mingled with the rain. I raised my Leica binoculars. Through the lens the bruise on her collarbone was sharp. This morning, when I'd asked about it, she'd replied, "Banged it on a yoga ball." Reality, right now she was banging into Makoto inside that hotel room. Rain suddenly spattered the binoculars. I rubbed the lens hard with my sleeve, molars grating audibly. "Willow," Makoto murmured. "Any progress on that divorce we talked about?" Willow's laugh rolled together with the thunder. "Once that idiot's personal accident policy gets past the waiting period, I won't be divorcing, I'll be a widow." I pressed the record button. Willow turned toward the window. Instinctively I shrank into the shadows. "There's a reflection," she said, tugging a thin blanket across. Makoto chuckled. "Who'd tail you on a night like this? Your dumb IT nerd of a husband must be at the office coding away." The light in 328 went out. I saved the video to a USB stick, went downstairs, and discovered my hands were shaking so hard I could barely fit the key into the ignition. The car's Bluetooth suddenly blasted, "Will you marry me today?" The custom ringtone Willow had set for me when we married a few years back. Nibbling my ear then, she'd whispered, "This song is perfect for a straight-laced IT nerd like you, really hits the spot." I slammed a fist against the steering wheel. The horn ripped through the rain. The Tomb Sweeping Festival is coming. And this straight-laced IT nerd is going to send you both to hell. Chapter 2: The Brake Failure Plan. That night, I smoked an entire pack of cigarettes. The embers sparked in the dark. The next morning, at the crack of dawn, Willow came home looking utterly drained and slipped the Mercedes key into the inner pocket of my suit. Her perfume had switched to a cedar base note, but it couldn't cover the lingering scent of men's aftershave on her blouse cuffs. She said, "I spent the night at my best friend's place, and the 4S dealership says the transmission's making a weird noise. Go check it out." She lowered her head to fix my tie. The bruises, concealed hickeys, beneath her collarbone were covered in foundation. Then she added, "Pick up my mink coat from the dry cleaner while you're at it." I nodded blankly. After all, pretending is part of the game. I slowly drove toward the Cross-Sea Bridge, and sure enough, the brakes locked up all of a sudden. The dashboard flashed an alert, transmission oil temperature maxed out. The smell of burning mixed with blue smoke curling up from the chassis. Calmly, I pulled open the hidden compartment under the seat. The remote fuel shutoff device I had installed last week saved my life. 3 months ago, when I discovered what was going on between Willow and Makoto, I began tailing them. That's when I stumbled upon something unexpected. Makoto was also involved with my mother-in-law, and Willow had no clue. That night, in a camera blind spot, I saw my mother-in-law, Sandra, jab a syringe into the brake fluid line and ask, "Makoto, is this dose enough to send him flying into the sea, make him fish food?" Makoto replied sweetly, "Once he's dead, Willow gets 3 apartments in top school zones and tens of millions from the dead guy's fortune. And she's not even your real daughter by blood. If we get rid of her next, we'll be free to fly away together." Then Makoto and Sandra burst into laughter. Later, traffic police recovered the deformed brake pump, and forensics found an excessive amount of dimethyl silicone oil. That aerospace lubricant is only used in Makoto's gym. At this point, there's no denying it, they want me dead. There's only one outcome now: total war. Willow, when you find out Sandra's not your biological mother, when you realize she's been screwing Makoto too, what kind of face will you make? I can't wait to see it. Chapter 3: First Encounter and the Conspiracy. The first time I saw Willow was at 3 in the morning. Right after the company's server crashed. As the new accountant, she was crouched in front of the server room eating a sandwich. The cream at the corner of her lips reminded me of the big orange cat back in my hometown. That night, I spent 47 minutes fixing the system, just so she could go home earlier. Willow said, George, you're a tech genius. Under the coffee cup she handed me were 2 movie tickets. In the darkness of the theater, I took her hand. The first time I met Sandra was in late autumn of 2018. She held the Westlake Dragon Well tea I gave her and ran her fingertip over the price tag. Then she asked, "Is Mr. Wong a programmer, the kind that fixes computers?" After tossing the tea into the trash, the splashes hit my Zegna shoes, bought with 3 months of salary. Then she used her gold and jade cigarette holder to lift the yellow croaker my dad had brought and commented, "A fish vendor from the wet market wants to be my in-law." The blood seeping from the fish's gills stained her freshly manicured nails. It poured on our wedding day. Willow insisted on wearing a strapless dress. Beneath her collarbone were the tattooed initials of my name, which Sandra covered with a shawl. The MC asked me to kneel and serve the tea. As soon as I touched the Celadon cup's rim, Sandra pulled her hand back and said, "Do all the Wong men collect red envelopes on their knees?" The whole room erupted in laughter. I glanced toward my father's table, his chilblained hands rubbing together anxiously. Clutching the red envelope that held 8,888 yuan scraped together by selling 3 mu of sugarcane, my father said, "Please, in-law, have your tea." He bowed his back and handed over the cup. Sandra's mink coat brushed his cracked nails as she remarked, "They say your village just got internet this year. No wonder little Wong here's so obsessed with the Wi-Fi password." She deliberately raised her voice at the end. One of the videographers stifled a laugh so hard the camera shook. Willow squeezed my hand under the table. There was a cut on her palm, from the photo frame we smashed during a fight the night before. She had cried then, saying, "Mom's doing this for your own good." Now, that wound felt like shards of glass embedded in me. During the toast, Sandra stopped the waiter and said, "Replace everything with Louis XIII. Put it on little Wong's tab." I stared at the price, 28,888 yuan on the wine list. Willow rushed to mediate. "Mom, my husband's company just asked staff to invest, he's low on cash." Sandra cut her off. "So what if you're raising funds? You think his salary will ever reach the sky? Keep dreaming. Just like your dad's Doberman, looks fierce. But one tug on the leash and he flops right over." That night, I crouched in the alley behind the hotel and vomited until I saw stars. When Willow found me, my phone screen was lit with a message from her mother. "Willow, no wedding night for now. Uncle Moo's son is back from Cambridge today. Put on the red dress I gave you and go meet him." Willow hesitated for a long time, but she didn't leave. Chapter 4, Love Turns to Hate. The marital apartment was paid for entirely out of my own pocket. In the first few years after the wedding we were madly in love, and I worked hard so she could live ever better. But the moment she started hitting the gym, everything changed. Every day she commuted in Makoto's car. She said it was just her trainer giving her a lift. Yet only recently did I learn from the dashcam logs that they slammed on the brakes 17 times along Riverside Road. Once, while repairing the computer, I found a video she'd hidden on the D drive. In full HD 1080p, Makoto's monster bicep was squeezing the bruises on her waist. What truly sparked my murderous intent, though, was the accident insurance file. Willow had secretly switched the beneficiary on my accidental death policy, from spouse to my mother-in-law, Sandra, and slipped the notarized document into the blockchain code I was writing through the night. Now they're getting ready to kill me and grab my estate. It's true that in the past few years my career has taken off. The programs I wrote are all cash flow positive. And, with my founder shares, I'm worth tens of millions. I have money now, but my beloved is gone. Chapter 5, The Death Plot. The next day, thanks to the Trojan on her phone, I learned their next move. Makoto said softly, "Last time the brake failure was dumb luck for him." Willow's jade bangle tapped the marble counter. After a long hesitation she said, "Honestly, if I just file for divorce he'd still have to give me half the assets." Makoto chuckled. "Why settle for half when we can take it all? How about the electrified pool plan this time?" I cranked up the gain amplifier and heard Sandra chime in. "That fool's safe in his study is fireproof. We need him to open it himself. We have to get his shares and everything else first." Then Sandra added casually, "Or stage a home invasion on a stormy night." Makoto laughed. "We could feed him pufferfish liver." "Didn't you get some radioactive contaminants too? Fake a cancer caused by nuclear pollution." Sandra giggled. "The more we talk, the wilder it sounds. Let's just mess with the car again. He already crashed once. I'll talk him into buying a brand new Benz. And we'll pull the old switcheroo. He won't even know what killed him." Makoto laughed as well. "He's going to his mother's grave in a couple of days." "Right. Perfect. Let the whole family have a reunion." Willow seemed to waver. "Maybe we should just drop it." But Sandra and Makoto mocked her until she fell silent. I saved every bit of audio and synced it to the cloud. Beside me the printer spat out 3 blank autopsy forms, matching the deaths they'd plotted for me. Cardiac arrest by electrocution, respiratory paralysis from tetrodotoxin, and a body charred to ash in an arson fire. On the basement workbench, sticks of white phosphorus incense were taking shape in the 3D printer, the fascia gun was charging, and a puffer fish was puffed up adorably. All of these will become the nails sealing their own coffins. A patrol car's lights flashed outside the window as I swallowed my fourth mint. The chill slid down my throat like a tang sword about to leave its sheath. They have angered a programmer. Straight to hell, all of them. Chapter 6, Fatal Counter-Strike. Those 3 tailored deaths are my own design. But since they still mean to kill me, I have to be fully prepared. While they were at home plotting, I walked straight into the gym where Makoto works. There are no cameras in the locker room. On the inside of the 3rd locker he uses, sweat salts still lingered. With a pre-made fingerprint film I easily copied the keypad code. When I slid my modified massage gun into its charging dock, the built-in capacitor began storing energy, cannibalized from a scrapped defibrillator. 12 volts, more than enough to trigger ventricular fibrillation through damp skin. On the spin bike that only Makoto uses, I adjusted a resistor and locked the output at his usual 300 watt setting. If Makoto grips the handlebars, conductive gel will seep from the heart rate sensors. Exactly 45 minutes in, right when he hits VO2 max, the capacitor's pulse will merge with the bike's current. The coroner will see nothing but the textbook signs of an exertional myocardial infarction. Nothing to do with me. When I got home, Makoto was already gone. Sandra gave me a scornful little smile, folded her arms, and announced, "Let me drive your Benz for now. You go buy yourself a new one, the same model is fine." I nodded and smiled. "Mom, you really do look out for me." Willow stood off to the side, lips pressed tight, eyes flickering. Sandra snorted. "A man needs his pride. After all the years you've slogged for this family, consider this a little treat." I nodded again and strolled back to the bedroom. Mother and daughter whispered in the living room. I noticed Willow's YSL Slim No. 21 lipstick was almost finished. With a syringe I drew 0.3 milliliters of liquid pufferfish toxin and blended it into a fresh tube of the same shade. A single gram of that purified poison can kill 300 people. In microdoses it merely causes a slow paralysis of the respiratory muscles. Once she applies it and habitually licks her lips, the toxin will seep through capillaries into the bloodstream. Mild dyspnea will send her to the ER. The doctor, seeing her asthma history, will prescribe an inhaler, unaware that salbutamol speeds the toxin's binding to neuromuscular junctions. Also none of my concern. Next I went to the villa's ancestral hall. Before my father-in-law's spirit tablet I sprinkled white phosphorus powder into the incense burner. Kneeling on a floor cushion, I used my phone to raise the underfloor heating to 28 degrees Celsius. At that temperature the phosphorus dust will self-ignite after 72 hours. And the ethanol gel carpet flashes at precisely 65 degrees Celsius. I can already picture it. As Makoto collapses, the gym's backup power kicks in. Staff pry open his eyes, flashlight probing for a pupillary reflex, shouting, "Call an ambulance." I can also see Willow in the emergency ward, clutching a nebulizer, spiderweb rashes blooming on her neck, mistaken for allergic purpura. I would gently pat her back and offer her water, wiping the spittle from her sleeve with my fingertips. I could even picture it, when the white phosphorus dust ignites the curtains, and sparks scatter, the whole house will turn into a crematorium. Sandra will be dancing a graceful waltz in the villa. Makoto's report will read, sudden cardiac death, no electrical burns detected. Willow's, severe asthma with respiratory failure, toxin metabolites chalked up to seafood allergy. Sandra will display classic fire damage, body contorted by heat shrinkage, all of it unconnected to me. The lone flaw, people closely tied to me suffering accidents in the same window of time. But I can't worry about that now. They want me dead, and I can't wait much longer. Chapter 7, Nighttime Recon at the Workshop. During the day I went back to the company, liquidated all my shares, and wired tens of millions in cash into my father's account. Then I sat still and waited for the game to begin. But by nightfall the situation had shifted. Makoto never showed up at the gym. Willow never used that lipstick. My mother-in-law was gone from the house. Guided by the GPS ping from Sandra's phone, I slipped into a second-hand automod shop after midnight. Through a ventilation duct I watched Makoto inject dimethyl silicone oil into a brake fluid reservoir. Sandra's mink coat lay spread across the hydraulic lift. Makoto said, "Baby, this time there can't be any slip-ups. As soon as he brings home the new car, I'll make him drive this old one." Sandra answered, "Relax, the mountain road on Ancestors' Day is perfect." Makoto let out a chilly laugh. "No way it fails, just like when we killed your husband 3 years ago." Then he went on, "Willow is your husband's child, not yours. So there's no need to leave her any money. When it's over, we'll run off together." I narrowed my eyes. The police file on my father-in-law's crash had blamed overheated brakes. Now they were recreating that very death equation. "Willow, you're such a complete fool." Chapter 8, The Bait and Switch. Early the next morning I picked up an identical Mercedes and parked it outside the house. Sandra's eyes glittered. Pressing her lips together, she said, George, this new car is gorgeous, let me drive it. You're visiting the graves today, so take the old one, she added with a smile. Willow and I are going to her father's grave too. We'll take the brand new Benz. I stared at the modified Mercedes and nodded lightly. Willow shot me a wary look and asked, "You're sure you still want to drive that car?" Sandra frowned and shoved Willow back into the house. I drove the tampered Mercedes out of the villa. What they didn't know was that I had swapped the cars during the night. The one I'm driving is actually the new vehicle, I only scratched the paint. The car still at the villa is the real new Benz, but I've resprayed it. A perfect bait and switch. Let them reap what they've sown. Cautiously steering toward the cemetery, I heard a strange noise over the phone's live feed. To my surprise, Willow hadn't gone with Sandra to the grave. Makoto had gone instead. Chapter 9, Car Crash. In the ancestral day morning fog, Sandra's red Mercedes spiraled up Luoyan Mountain Road. On the passenger side, Makoto sat with his eyes closed. "Slow down," he murmured. "We've got time. Once that crash kills him, everything he owns is ours." "I want it to be thrilling," Sandra replied, flooring the gas. The dashboard oil temperature needle hit its red line. At the hairpin by the mid-slope overlook, Makoto suddenly sniffed the air. Dimethyl silicone oil was boiling inside the brake lines, and the steering wheel began to shudder violently. The screech of metal on metal exploded. Sandra's eyes flew wide. The moment the Mercedes punched through the guardrail, the overheated silicone ignited, flames roared into the sky. By the time firefighters arrived, 2 charred corpses were still locked in an embrace. When Willow and I got to the scene, she stood there stupefied, whispering, "Impossible, impossible," the traffic police captain said. "Accident." He stubbed out his cigarette. "Third luxury car fire this month," he grumbled. "People play too hard, unbelievable." Sandra's jade bangle lay unscathed amid the wreckage. The inner YTC engraving was glazed blood-red by the flames. Willow kept muttering, "Impossible, how could they be together?" Then she collapsed, curling up on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Days passed in a daze. Sandra's memorial was set for the 3rd day after Ancestors' Day. I deliberately chose the charcoal gray suit she had hated most. Willow said, "Mom loved cleanliness, darling. Please brush it off properly." When she handed me the urn, her eyes skittered away. Once she would have ordered me to kowtow, but not now. Makoto was no kin of mine. I had no duty to cremate him. In the morgue, Willow pressed her lips together, then suddenly looked up, frowning. "Honey, do you know something?" I shrugged. "Know what?" "That a personal trainer was having an affair with your mother." "Come on." Willow's mouth twitched. Her stare brimmed with fear. "It was you," she screamed, grabbing a veteran detective's uniform sleeve and shouting at me. Under the precinct's fluorescent tubes, her pupils shattered like the windows blown out at the cremation site. I stroked the burned scar in the web of my hand, the one she'd given me 3 years ago when she accidentally spilled the hangover soup. The dashcam audio looped in the interrogation room. Sandra and Makoto's filthy talk over the roaring engine. "MS, Lou," the detective said coolly, peeling her trembling hand away. "Autopsy shows the same class of stimulants in your mother's and Mr. Ito's blood." He pulled up a photo of the pill bottle, labeled with a Thai elephant logo. "Imported by Makoto." Willow froze. She recognized the blue bottle. Makoto had given it to her, too. Shaking her head, "No, impossible," she backed into an evidence rack, toppled it, then swung a glass ashtray at me. I dodged. Shards burst against the wall like wedding day confetti. "You devil. You killed my mother, blood for blood," she howled, face contorted, body trembling. The detective finally lost patience. "MS, Lou, calm yourself. Case closed." He slid his pen into his pocket. "Mr. Wong is free to go." On purpose he left the closure report on the table. The last page, in red ink, circled the fire investigation finding. Ethanol gel carpet's ignition temperature lowered by moisture. Static discharge cannot be ruled out. Passing Willow. I felt her clutch my pant leg. "If I'd been in that car," she whispered, "I'd be the one dead, right?" I lifted her up gently. "You're my wife. I will never allow you to die. Be good. We still have a lifetime ahead of us." Willow backed away in terror, staring at me as though I were a monster. Chapter 10, Truth Revealed. Sandra had almost no savings. All the inheritance Willow's father left behind had been blown on Makoto. For years the whole family had latched onto me like parasites. If Willow left me now, she'd be nothing. She followed me home, trembling. With a bitter laugh she said, "I'm the stupidest woman alive." I nodded and played. On the TV, the footage of them plotting my murder, the hotel room trysts with Makoto, the whispered schemes between Makoto and Sandra, everything laid bare. Willow's eyes went wide in disbelief. I spread my hands. "Pretty foolish." "Yes, you're not even Sandra's biological daughter." My investigation showed Willow was her father's child. Her birth mother died in an accident, and Sandra entered the household when Willow was 2, unable to bear children and twisted at heart. Sandra teamed up with Makoto, they killed Father Lou. Then had Makoto seduce Willow so they could kill us both, and walk off with everything. Willow sank to the floor, wailing, clutching my leg. She sobbed. Honey, I was wrong, my greed clouded my mind. They scared me into it, I never meant to hurt you. Please forgive me. I only smiled. She thudded her knees on the floor, kowtowing over and over, crying, don't leave me. Please, don't hurt me. I stroked her hair and said with a smile, I love you so much, why would I hurt you? We've got a lifetime of fun ahead. Her mouth opened. She couldn't guess what I wanted. I smiled again. Letting her live on in guilt and terror is far crueler than killing her. Chapter 11, Psychological Games. I set Makoto's urn in the middle of the dining table. Willow's jade bangle clinked against her porcelain bowl. She stared at the protein powder flecks floating in her kanji, spoils swept from Makoto's gym bag. The registry office opens at 9. I said, shall we get that divorce in a bit? Scooping a spoonful of protein from the urn, I sprinkled it into her bowl. This was the 37th time I'd proposed divorce. Her tears fell precisely on the dial's 9 o'clock mark. Who husband? I was wrong, she whispered, gripping my sleeve, nails digging into the burn scar from 3 years ago. I pulled back. The urn tipped, powder spilling onto her slippers. The living room camera hides in her vanity mirror. Right in front of the live feed I tore open her collar and bit the collarbone where Makoto had left his teeth marks. See if Makoto can hear that too, I said. She convulsed before the monitor. Incense smoke curled upward while Sandra's memorial photo seemed to smile. Day after day Willow withered, yellow patches bloomed on her face. Her figure grew bloated. Strangers pointed at her on the street. Night after night she scrubbed at phantom bite marks until she knelt before me, begging. Please, husband, send me to a psychiatric hospital, I can't take this, I really can't. I opened the safe. She saw 100 unsigned divorce papers and shrieked, ripping them to shreds. The night I canceled all her credit cards, I spread copies of Sandra's will across the bathtub, soaking in bleach. Willow counted the inheritance figures. I said, 37,000 yuan. That's the coffin fund your mom set aside for you. I pressed the whirlpool switch. Water rose over the burn scar on her chest, left from her failed self-immolation. On the winter solstice night we sat aboard the anniversary yacht. In the sky above, a projection played the car sex video of her and Makoto. Reflections off the jade bangle flashed a harlot's Morse code. Let's divorce, I said for the 200th time. She suddenly lunged toward the propeller. I yanked her back. She laughed like a child who'd found a new toy and said, husband, you can't bear to, you haven't played me to death yet. Chapter 12, Last Frenzy. That night she slipped into my room again and asked, darling, can you smell my new bitter peach perfume? Willow eased a nightgown strapped down to the crook of her elbow, the bruise on her knee nudging the laptop where I was coding. It was her 7th attempt to thaw the ice with her body, just like the first time we fooled around in the computer lab 5 years ago. I took off my blue light glasses. Lines of code flickered in her pupils. Did Makoto see you in that outfit too? I asked. The highlighter she'd so carefully dusted on her cheeks cracked with her frozen expression, like crazed porcelain glaze. Surveillance showed that same night she'd swallowed half a bottle of melatonin. Yet before the drug kicked in she dashed to the neighborhood trash bay, clawing through garbage for the wedding photos I'd thrown out. A guard's body cam caught the feral cat that scratched her face, the starting point of her physical ruin. City Hospital dermatology files list 27 visits in that span. Doctors called it stress-induced urticaria with neurodermatitis, but the pathology note read, patient persistently picks at facial skin, possible self-harm tendency. She turned to alcohol. Empty bottles in the bin still carried traces of minoxidil, hair tonic mixed with vodka and poured into her stomach. Doctors said it sped the mass death of her follicles. At a class reunion she wore a wig. When a false eyelash plopped into the soup tureen, her former bestie switched to whispering in English while she was retching in the restroom. The waiter I'd planted accidentally soaked her coat, out slipped a forged HIV-positive report. On the day Willow died she wore the same lace lingerie from our first night. Autopsy found her stomach packed with soil, and the last photo in her phone was an aging simulation screenshot from a photo editing app. Captioned, honey, look, I finished it ahead of time for you. The coroner's final verdict, prolonged emotional suppression leading to organic psychotic disorder. Chapter 13, Sandra's Story. The night I married into the Liu family, 2-year-old Willow sat in the middle of the bridal bed clutching a baby bottle. The toddler soaked the 3 yen 000 Suzhou embroidery bedsheets, and Martin Liu merely laughed. Perfect, she'll soon have a baby brother to keep her company. Infertility stuck in my throat like a fishbone. Every week Martin took me to the hospital for ovulation trigger injections. The nurses eyed me with pity, one of them whispering, Mrs. Sandra, your husband's sperm looks just fine. I knew they called me the hen that lays no eggs behind my back. On New Year's Eve 2000, Martin, drunk, hoisted Willow overhead and slurred, How about Daddy's little princess inheriting the family business? I smashed my champagne flute. The shards in my instep hurt less than his words. The first time I saw Makoto, he was coaching a society matron on a Roman chair at the Weston gym. At 24, his oiled physique gleamed. His rising chest was as graceful as a panther's. "Madam, you need to fix your anterior pelvic tilt," he said. And when his palm touched the small of my back, I caught the scent of cedar beneath his sweat. That day I bought 50 personal training sessions. My hand shaking so badly I keyed in the wrong pin 3 times. During our first locker room tryst he bit my ear and whispered, "Martin won't live past next Ancestors' Day." I clawed bloody furrows down his back. Blood and plaster dust filled my nails. It was sun showering the day Martin died. Makoto met me in the garage wearing surgical gloves as he adjusted the brake pads. A nameless oil smear on his collarbone like a snarl of a scar. "Once we get the inheritance, I'll take you to see the sea in Mauritius," he said, brushing rain from my lashes. When Martin's Mercedes-Benz S600 slammed into an oil tanker, I was trying on morning clothes. Firefighters said the corpse had burned until only a platinum wedding ring remained. I slipped off my matching ring and dropped it into the men's room urinal at the gym. At Willow's 28th birthday banquet I tucked Makoto's business card into her LV bag. "A girl needs a peach-perfect booty if she wants men to dote on her," I said, personally swapping her into Lululemon yoga pants that cinched bruises into her waist. The surveillance feed caught Makoto pinning Willow against a spin bike while I was applying lipstick in a man-killer shade. A stability ball ricocheted off the mirror, reflecting Makoto flipping the camera the bird. I let Willow join our game only because of George's fortune. I stared at the bedroom safe, his share certificates must be inside, while the window showed my calf taut under a silk chipao, 52 and still able to drive a man like Makoto crazy. "Thanks to more than just Bulgari Blue, are you really going this far?" Makoto asked behind me. Outside, torrential rain battered my son-in-law's brand new Mercedes. The dashcam's red LED blinked like the ECG line of Willow's father in his final moments. That wedding 5 years ago should have been the end. I still see George kneeling on the tulip aisle, the shoulders of his cheap suit wrinkled like a stray mutt. His father's hand trembled around a fake jade bangle, sweat blooming dark clouds on his lapels. Yet Willow clung to his arm and declared she'd marry no one else. After I met Makoto, money poured out of me like water. So I set my sights on George. Who could have guessed he'd strike it rich, coding his way into AI stardom? Better to let him disappear by accident. Makoto tested the waters. "How about a flyover crash? My brake tampering fee has to count toward the inheritance." Willow's mouth twitched in terror. That was our first formal conspiracy. Holding Willow by the waist, Makoto demonstrated the brake failure model. "Kill with a borrowed knife," he said. "Make sure there's no whole corpse left." Yet when flames curled over the leather seats Makoto and I occupied, I finally saw the good luck charm dangling from the rearview mirror, a photo of Willow and George on the back of her talisman. As the stench of burning flesh met my nose, I could hear Martin laughing. Chapter 14, Willow's Story. I lifted Makoto's fingernail clipping with a pair of tweezers and suddenly remembered the nude polish he first brushed on me a year ago. He'd been kneeling on one knee atop a yoga mat, fingers skimming my ankle as if by chance. "Miss Lou, your arch is exquisite," he'd murmured. That polish, and Makoto himself, were my birthday present from Mother, a diamond-level VIP card at the gym, personal trainer included. In the footage playing now, he sized up my body as though unboxing a long-awaited parcel. "Your husband stares at code all day. How would he know real beauty?" Makoto said. Mother slid a Porsche key into the ignition. "We're the backless dress I bought you for next week's gala." The cabin smelled of Road to the Underworld. The car fragrance Makoto gave me, the resinous incense base tangled with the cedar of his sweat. At a red light he suddenly leaned over to fasten my seat belt, stubble grazing my collarbone, heartbeat racing. "Shall we check your body fat percentage?" he teased. I yielded, and even begged them to spare George. In the end Makoto's sweet talk broke me, and I agreed to their plan. I never imagined the arrow we loosed would pierce Mother and Makoto instead. On the day traffic police called to claim the bodies, I wore Makoto's favorite man-killer lip glaze. Mother's diamond-tipped acrylic nails were still embedded in the steering wheel shards. Makoto's right hand clutched the severed brake line. The coroner tapped the report. "Accident. Brake system eaten through by strong acid." I doubled over the counter and retched, my mind a maelstrom. Never had I thought. Sandra and Makoto, together. George laid divorce papers on the dining table beside a restored dashcam video. On screen Sandra straightened Makoto's tie. "Once George is dead, we'll make Willow disappear too," she said. "She's not my child anyway. Then we'll take everything." I froze, learned I wasn't Sandra's daughter at all, and from George's account I learned my own father had been murdered by Sandra and Makoto. While I scrubbed the floor tiles for the third time George repotted succulents on the balcony, humming under noise-canceling headphones, the soil under his nails fresher than the bruises on my knees. It was our 187th day of Cold War. He'd bought the little Horthia cookery last month, saying, "Give it a bit of sun and it shines," unlike people, who are never satisfied. "The duck soup's ready," I said, placing the clay pot on the table so the scar on my wrist showed. I'd carved it on his birthday last week. The blood dripped onto the cake like strawberry jam. Yet he'd never touched my tiramisu. Removing his headphones, he frowned. Some disinfectant splashed in the kitchen. His chopsticks poked the Dawn K in the broth, calming herbs I'd bought with his insurance card. Since he'd caught me slipping melatonin into his sports drink, he'd never eaten my cooking again. The soup went into the succulents pot. Sizzling fat singed its leaves. The bathroom mirror still bore the blood scrawl from 6 months ago. That night he'd dragged me from a hotel room. I'd swallowed an entire bottle of antidepressants in front of him. Leaning on the doorframe, he'd filmed me, acting half-baked. "Swallow that slow and the ambulance will beat the poison." I'd ended up gagging myself to vomit. He hadn't even flushed the toilet for me. "Cold front tomorrow. I put your sweater." I blocked his study doorway with a cashmere pullover. He was tweaking a new program. Blue light glazing the nape he once let me mark with bruising kisses. "You're blocking the screen," he said, pushing me aside, face colder than a polar night. Deep in the night I squatted by the flower bed and ate dirt. The sour rot of humus was harsher than any medicine. Beneath the newly planted peony lay a dead stray. George said last month its mating yowls ruined his coding flow. Clods jammed in my throat. I suddenly recalled his proposal promise to take me to Iceland for volcanic rock cuisine. "Having fun?" George asked, flashlight blinding my eyes. Ash dusted his pajamas. He must have been burning incense for Sandra. Mud choked my apology. He knelt, stuffing aquarium pumice into my mouth. "Lava stone purges better than bonsai soil," he said. I sat in the shower for 4 hours. My skin pruned, yet the earth stench clung. At my last hospital visit, the doctor stared at my gastroscopy scan, shaking his head. "All those fibers, did you eat the landscaping?" I felt the CT shadow in my abdomen, like the moss terrarium George let die. He sat in the waiting area scrolling Taobao. His cart held industrial-grade sprinkler heads. That evening, in front of him, I chewed the entire succulent to pulp. Expressionless, he said. "If you chewed like that in front of the camera, your mukbang views would crush every influencer out there." Juice dripped from my chin onto the collarbone, still stamped with his drunken bite. "Violence restrains violence," he'd said. When the funeral workers came to collect me, George was on the balcony grilling pancakes. He drizzled maple syrup over the burnt side. "Special hellfire flavor, just for you." The last thing I heard was his mechanical keyboard clacking in time with the urn's lock snapping shut. Later, the property manager warned in the resident chat, someone had poured concrete into the septic tank. A reply below read, "Sorry, pet got into something it shouldn't." Attached was a surveillance still of me scrubbing the floor, next to a Horthia greener than ever.